All right, we are back, and we have special guests, I should say. We have former center for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Randy Grimes, and also we have Steve Miranda here. First of all, gentlemen, well, I want to talk about the atmosphere. How do you like it so far?
Oh, I love it. I love it. This is such a great platform, especially for what we're talking about. And this is my 11th consecutive Super Bowl to be here talking about athletes in recovery and the work that we do with the Player Care Foundation and JourneyPure.com. So, you know, what a great opportunity to be around the guys that I played with and against, you know, the guys that I love so much, a game that I love so much.
And can you all speak about the athlete in recovery?
Yeah, and you know, when I came into treatment, when I went into rehab, I had a terrible addiction to opiates. I left the game with it. It started as a member of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and when I came into treatment, there was not a program out there for retired NFL players, guys who, just like me, were self-medicating, sick and suffering, and for whatever reason, they wouldn't put their hand up and ask for help. So, you know, after I went through this process, I started a program for former players. We've been able over the last decade to help hundreds and hundreds of former NFL players and their families, and not just NFL, you know, MLB, NBA guys, pretty much former players from every sport, jockeys, race car drivers, MMA fighters. So, you know, I'm proud of the fact that I've been able to use such a terrible time in my life to give back to the game and the guys that I love so much.
Absolutely. Now, you know, that's a key, I think, right? Like offensive linemen, defensive linemen, but especially offensive linemen. They hit every play, knees taken out, things like that. And how much did that affect the recovery, your addiction, that you became addicted to?
Well, and you know, I was going to be that guy that was not ever going to be on the injury report. I was never going to be back waiting on the doctor. I was not going to get a reputation as missing practice all the time. So it meant enough to me to take handfuls of opiates every day to stay out on the field and not miss a play. And you know, yeah, you know, I had 107 consecutive starts at one time. I was playing through a lot of injuries, you know, because I did not want to miss anything. And I didn't want anybody else to be in my position. To be honest with you, that fueled a lot of it because, you know, I had some great players behind me just waiting for me to go down. And I didn't ever want that to happen. So, you know, that pride and that ego and that love of the game is what drove it. And I looked at it like a necessary evil back then. I wanted to feed my family. I wanted to be the best center to ever play the game. I never wanted to miss a snap. So I never looked at it like what it really was, and it was a full-blown addiction. And I took that into my private life. And, you know, the next 20-plus years, I couldn't stop the insanity. It just kept getting worse and worse and worse. And everybody suffered. My family, I lost jobs, cars, houses, all that because of my addiction.
Steve, now to see him where he is now, especially from where he came from, how important is that moving forward for other people who deal with it as well?
Well, it's incredible when you have professional athletes who come out and you know, people watch every week and look up to and admire, and they want to be just like them. Step up to the plate and say, I have a problem, to break that stigma, because in the country that we live in, with the addiction issues and the mental health issues going on, the biggest piece to getting help is the stigma that's associated with that for so many years. You can't come forward. I mean, Randy was, I like to tell Randy, you know, he wore a cape every week. He thought he was a superhero. He put on a uniform. And so how do you come forward and say I'm weak, right? Because everybody looks at it as if you come forward with a mental health issue or a drug abuse or addiction issue, that you're weak. When in retrospect, you become that much stronger. When, you know, Randy's been telling the story about that first time when he raised his hand and said I needed help, and you know, 90 days later sitting on a picnic bench by himself and letting out all these emotions of the last 20 years of what he's been through and what he put people through. So the stigma associated with that is huge. And I like to, you know, I've been throwing out this statistic for the last 2 days. We've had over 700,000 Americans overdose and die since 1999. Think about that.
113 people a day.
113 people a day. So we still have a stigma associated with it, but when you have professional athletes, when you have folks that people look up to in the community every day. I retired out of law enforcement, you know, over 22 years in law enforcement. I had to put a uniform every day, and I was Superman. And so you never came forward and said, hey, I got a problem, because you were considered one of the weak guys in the group. So when those folks, the military folks, right? You see it big time with the military folks today. When they come forward and they start talking about mental illness and addiction, it lets that stigma goes away. And the more we can do that, the better we get at helping people.
Now, Randy, we both are Chicago guys. We're originally from Chicago. Can you tell us a little bit about playing against that vaunted defense?
About Chicago?
Yeah, Chicago Bears.
Hampton and McMichael and Dent and all those guys. And I played 2 years with Singletary at Baylor. Singletary broke 4 helmets in his career, and 2 of those were on me at Baylor. I mean, every day in practice I had to go against that guy. But, that's kind of what made me the center that I was, blocking against somebody like that. And even getting to the pros and having to go against somebody like Leroy Selman every day in practice, it made me the player that I am. But, man, you talk about some great battles out there with the Fridge, Fridge right over me, with McMichael right beside him, with Hampton over there and Dent out there and Singletary in the middle, Wilbur Marshall. What a great defense that was. And to have Buddy Ryan over there screaming at him and screaming at everybody else, just what a great time, great era to be playing football in the National Football League.
Was it a particular player that you hated to play against? Like you knew you had to get sleep and rest the night before?
Oh, well, you had guys that were unstoppable like Reggie White, guys like Michael Carter who would club you. That was back when you could still club people in the head. And, those nose guards were taping up their hands, and that's all they were doing was clubbing. And, so you had guys like that. But I go back to even Joe Klecko and Jim Burt, guys that were just impossible. Klecko, the first guy that cocked at nose, had that sideways position. And I remember coming up to the line, what in the world am I supposed to do with it? Because I can't get to him, and I know the guard's not going to help me. So what am I supposed to do with this? But, being in 3rd and long and having in a shotgun situation and having Reggie White line up over you where you're going to be on an island, the fear, But you get through it, and somehow you make it through.
Can you tell us a little bit about your book?
The book, yeah. The book is off center. Hopefully it's going to be out sometime this summer. And, it's the story of my addiction, and it goes all the way back to when I was a kid. But, the cool thing about it is that my kids helped me write it. My wife helped me write it. And it was a family project, and it was a healing project, for all of us. So I'm excited about it. It's going to be really. It was good for me to go through that process.
Now, these days you see linemen are making so much money now. They're getting their just due.
Thanks for reminding me.
But even coming from that, saying, I know you're like, man, I wish we could have gotten it. But are you happy for them now?
Yeah, I mean, that's what we went on strike for in 1987. That's why I stayed out 7 games, and gave up 7 game checks, is so free agency could be free agency is what changed the game and drove those salaries up. I was the 45th player selected in the 83 draft. Had I had that today,
Right.
we wouldn't be here right now, Right. Y'all'd all be in my beach house, and we'd be living large right now. But what? It was all relative, and I wouldn't trade anything.
Talk about that strike, because that was an interesting year. I was 8 maybe.
Thanks for reminding me of that too. You're just making it worse.
But it was good to see you all come together.
Right.
I know at some point they tried to force other athletes, other football players, I guess to sign with money and things like that. What was it like going through that and I guess coming up with that strategy?
It was tough on everybody, and everybody wanted to play. We were football players. We didn't want to be striking, but you didn't want to be the one that crossed the line. You didn't want to be a scab, and there was guys that were doing it, and you'd hear about somebody in New York or somebody in Dallas or something that crossed the line, and you'd think, wow, I really need to feed my family, but I also want to hang with my brothers, and so it was tough. We were just talking about it. I had just bought a '71 Jaguar XKE. It was red. It was a big V12. It was an old car, and I was going to restore it. Man, I was so proud of that car. But after about that 6th or 7th game check, missing that, I'm like, how long is this going to last? And I had to get rid of that car. And man, I still think about that car all the time, and I had to get rid of that because of the strike. I even keep Polaroids of it on my refrigerator. I look at it every day. And but you know what? The main thing is we got something great accomplished. We left a great legacy for the NFL and for the younger players. And even though they don't really appreciate it like they should, it changed the game and made it what it is now.
It's always said that, with addicts, before they can get help, they have to want to get help. At what point did you get there? What was the point that made you get there?
Yeah, and that was in the spring and summer of 2009. And I'd played with a guy named Tom McHale in Tampa for many years, and he passed away doing the same thing I was doing, self-medicating his injuries that he got while he played for the Bucks. My daughter wouldn't let me come around my first grandkid because I wasn't safe to be around. My wife, she couldn't live with me anymore. I was sleeping in the floor of an abandoned house. I was here I am, Mr. NFLer and everything, and this is what addiction brought me to. I'd lost all my houses, my cars, jobs, relationships, and that summer with all that going on, I was having seizures because of withdrawal. All that together finally made me put my hand up and ask for help.
So what would you say to those who are watching who are dealing with the same thing? Like, what would be your message? My message
is that there's help and there's hope. All you have to do is put your hand up and ask for help. And I even encourage families who don't know what to do with a loved one that's suffering from addiction to reach out to us. Let us help them navigate through this, because this only gets worse. It never gets better on its own.
There you have it. Randy Grimes, former NFL center for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Steve Miranda. We appreciate you all for coming on. And hey, man, keep on preaching that.
Thank you very
message.
much. We'll see you next year, and we'll do it again, right?
Absolutely.
In Tampa.
Absolutely.
That's right. That's right.
Hey, we're looking for a party to come to.
Yeah,
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
All right.
Thank you.